Welcome to Confection Kitchen. Today we're going to be doing a chocolate cake and I'm going to be doing a strawberry frosting. That'd be a great opportunity. My neighbor, it's his birthday and I got volunteered by my husband to do his cake, which is great because then I thought, hey, perfect opportunity to teach the basics of chocolate cake. Chocolate cake's a little bit different than doing vanilla cake. It has a little bit different components. But as always, room temperature is always key. You're gonna hear me say that a lot as we keep doing these fun videos together. So I'm gonna tell you the ingredients, and again, this is a Sally's Baking Addiction recipe. So what you're gonna need is you're gonna need 1 3/4 cup of flour. And remember, as always with flour, you wanna start off with a heaping bunch of flour, so that way you can tap it down and push it through, and then you're gonna scrape it off so it is level as always. Then you're gonna also need 1 3/4 cup of sugar, a 3/4 cup of unsweetened natural cocoa powder. And the importance with the natural cocoa powder, because you're gonna see on there in the stores that there's going to be a Dutch processed and then there's going to be a natural. A lot of times when you need a raising agent, like for cakes and muffins and those kind of things, if you use cocoa powder, you do not want to use the Dutch process because it will not react with the baking soda. So I always make sure that I find 100% natural unsweetened cocoa powder because this will react beautifully with that baking soda. Next thing you're going to need is 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Then you're going to need 1 teaspoon of salt, and I have it all here for you to go. You're also going to need 1 cup of buttermilk at room temperature. Now, buttermilk is one of those things that I do not keep on hand very often, even as much as I bake. If I know I'm gonna be doing a lot of baking with buttermilk, I'll get some, but there's a little tip and trick on that. If you just do a squeeze of lemon, so I usually cut a lemon in half and I squeeze that half a lemon into a measuring cup. And then I just measure regular old 2% whole milk, and I let it sit for 5 minutes, and then it'll start to kind of get that acidicness for the milk. Buttermilk is basically just an acid that will help the cake have really good moisture and flavor. Then you're gonna also need a 1/2 cup of vegetable oil or canola, or you can use melted coconut oil is fine as well. You're gonna also need 2 large eggs, which I have here that have been measured out, and it's been sitting on the counter because we want room temperature. And room temperature is going to help everything blend uniformly. So it's super important that when something says room temperature, you really follow the room temperature. So this one is room temperature. We're also going to need 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, and then 1, which is I felt like was the secret ingredient to chocolate cake because I didn't realize it before, is 1 cup of hot, strong coffee. Now, if you don't have coffee, first of all, I'm sorry. And then also, if you don't, or you're not, whatever, a coffee drinker, 1 cup of hot water will work just as fine. I have Starbucks Via that I have. Shocking, I know. And I just add 1 packet of the Via. I usually use Italian roast because it's really strong in flavor. And I add hot water, so it's very hot. Ooh, hot. Now the hot water is gonna be the coffee, it's gonna be reacting with the cocoa powder to get it activated, basically. So you will not be tasting coffee, I promise you. Because at first I was like, I just want chocolate cake. I love coffee, but I don't need a coffee chocolate cake. But you won't taste the coffee. All the coffee does versus hot water is really bring out the chocolate flavor in this cake. So the next thing that you want to make sure that you do is you want to preheat your oven to 350, which I've already done. And then this is gonna be a 2-layer cake. So I have my 2 round 9-inch cake pans. Now there's a couple options that you can do. So you can butter and flour your pan. So all you have to do is basically, I just take like a little pat of butter and use my hands because it's easier. And I just will rub it around, and then I'll just put like a handful of flour and then hit it on all sides because you want to make sure you get all the sides. Then I'll do the same thing with the butter on this one, and then I take the extra flour from here and I dump it into this one and do the same thing and then dump it in the trash. The other thing you can do is just spray it with nonstick spray. That works too. And then the third option, which has been kind of newer in the few years that I've been baking, I've seen more and more people do this, is they spray like a nonstick pan or spray, and then I cut out. So I just measure on my parchment, measure out, and I cut a circular for my parchment. So you want to spray first, parchment, spray again. And then that way, when you plop off the cake, the really nice thing, and you still want to get the sides, obviously. The nice thing is it just plops right out, and then you just peel it off. So lately, I've been using this method a little bit more. So those are your ingredients. So you're gonna need 2 bowls, probably like a medium-sized bowl, and then a large bowl. So I have my large bowl here. And you're gonna be pouring your dry ingredients into your wet. So just know that you want your smaller bowl to be the dry ingredients because you're gonna pour those into it. So that way you can control the mixture and not over mixing. The other thing that you're gonna need is a hand mixer. You can use a KitchenAid stand, that's fine too. I prefer the mixer because I find it a little bit easier to mix everything by hand. So I will be using that. And then the other thing is a sifter. So I do have a sifter here that I have all of my dry ingredients. And the thing with the sifter is, especially when you're doing cakes, because I've used it with or without, and I do find that when I have a sifter, it does create a more smooth batter. I do recommend a sifter. I do recommend doing that little extra bit. And what I'm gonna do is then sift those all together so that way there are no lumps. Okay, so in here, if you notice, there's a little bit of chunks. I usually would just take my hand and scrape them on through. So now I have all of my ingredients sifted. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my whisk and then just mix it together so it is all uniform. So that way when you add this to your wet ingredients, everything is gonna be mixed together and it's just gonna make for a smoother and more uniformed and delicious cake. And this is one of my favorite recipes. I have yet to find something better, to be honest. So I'm gonna take my larger bowl and I am going to now, on high speed, mix my buttermilk. I love vanilla. Okay, and now I'm gonna mix this on high to mix it all together so it's all uniform. All right, perfect. So what we're gonna do is very slowly add the dry ingredient to the wet, and you wanna make sure your mixer is on low so that way you don't get chocolate all over the place. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna be mixing it just until it's just barely mixed together. And then what I'm gonna do, so if you notice, it's just about mixed together. I'm gonna take that hot coffee and I am gonna slowly pour it in. All right. So if you notice, the batter's gonna be really thin and you're gonna think, what did I do? Why, I did it wrong. And that's actually perfect. You want the batter to be very thin. So I'm gonna take my spatula and make sure that all the goodness on the bottom has come up. Okay, so I think we're good. So what we're gonna do now, so if you've noticed, the batter is very thin. It's very soup-like, and that's exactly what you want. All right, so now, so you can measure these out if you want. You totally can use a scale or just eyeball it. Apparently it's peanut butter time at the Lord household. I think I did pretty good. Okay. Yummy. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to bake these for 23 to 27 minutes. And I always like to start off at the lower end, so I'll probably put it for 23 minutes, and then I'll check on it and insert a toothpick, or I have a poker here I love that I use a lot. So we'll try that out. All right, it's going in the oven. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left in our cake. And so what I'm gonna start doing now is doing the frosting and then just letting it, while the cake's cool, at least I'll have the frosting ready to go. The first thing that we're gonna use for our strawberry frosting is freeze-dried strawberries. So these I got at Trader Joe's. I think they're the cheapest at Trader Joe's, and they're just as delicious, freeze-dried strawberries. And what you're gonna need is 1 cup, or what I do a lot of times is I have this scale that I got off of Amazon. I think it was like 12 bucks. It was super cheap, one of the cheaper ones out there. It's a Greater Goods scale. I highly, highly recommend this one because it's so great. Pulsate that in a Cuisinart food processor, which is what I did here. Then what you're gonna need is 1 cup of unsalted butter. So the key to this is making sure that it's unsalted. Most of the time that I'm doing baking, unless it really does call for salted butter, I do unsalted butter because you can control the salt content and the flavor of your whatever it is you're making a lot easier. It's super important to always start with like a baseline, so I always do unsalted butter, which is I have here. So I actually did leave this out on my counter for about an hour. So the way to know is if you press your thumb in, it's kind of hard to do when they're broken, and you can start to see an indent. So room temperature doesn't mean warm. So that's very, very key. Room temperature is like 65 degrees, which is actually a lot colder than most of our homes. Unless you're somebody who likes the cold. And so it's still gonna be cool to the touch. So my bowl is still cold, but my butter is a little bit more on the squishier side. If, let's say, you forgot to take out your butter and you realized you wanted to frost your cake, what you can do is you're gonna cut it up however you want. So I just cut it up into like tablespoons or so. Put it in a bowl. Then you're gonna take 2 cups of just regular old water, and you're gonna put it in your microwave, and you're going to heat up the water for 2 to 3 minutes until it starts to boil. Once it starts to boil, about 2 or 3 minutes later, you're gonna take it out, and you're gonna put this butter in there, and you're not gonna turn on the microwave. You're gonna let it sit there for 10 minutes. And after the 10 minutes, it's gonna come out almost perfect to where you need it to. You're also gonna need about 4 cups of confectioner sugar, or AKA powdered sugar. So you'll need 4 cups of that. You'll need 1 teaspoon of vanilla, like so, and you're gonna need 3 teaspoons of heavy cream. So here I have heavy cream. I have used half and half before. It works just as well. And I have used milk before when I'm in dire straits, and again, it has worked. This just creates a little bit, tiny bit more creamier texture. So heavy cream is gonna always be the way to go. And then you're gonna use just a pinch of salt. I think this went down my shirt. Awesome. So just a pinch of salt. Just because, remember, you're using unsalted butter. So you do need salt to like really bring out those flavors. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna dump our butter into the pan. I need professional people to clean up behind me. Wouldn't that be nice? That would be amazing. All right, so to do this, all you're gonna do is you're going to mix the butter about 2 minutes until it's all creamy inside. Okay. So you want to make sure that it's creamed so there's not any huge like chunks. I don't know if you can see that where you're scraping down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape it off the sides and bring it to the middle. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump all of my dry ingredients in. So I'm going to take the powdered sugar, voila, and this stuff gets everywhere, so be careful. And then I'm going to take my freeze-dried strawberries that I pulsated in the food processor, which felt like forever. Okay, and then I'm going to add my whipping cream. Okay, so now that I have that on there, I'm not going to add the salt just yet. I'm going to start off on low. Do not start off on high. And then work your way to high. Okay, so once it starts putting it, kind of mixing together, then you want to put it on high. And hold on to the bowl. Okay. So my cake, I'm going to test it. So, okay. So I can already see, I'm going to take this out so I can show you. It's a little bit jiggly. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. So I already know that it's not done. So I'm gonna put this in for another 2 minutes. And then by now, I'm just gonna check it every 2-minute intervals to make sure that soon as that stick comes out clean, then I'm taking it out because I don't wanna over dry my cake. All right, so I'm gonna push everything down in the middle. And now I'm going to, everything that I don't need, I'm now gonna like just taste. So it's a little on the sweet side. So because of that, you're gonna just take literally just a little bit of salt, like a pinch of salt, and put it in there. Because if you put too much salt in, that's all you're gonna taste. All right, and then we're gonna go high again. And then I'm gonna taste again with a clean spoon. If it was just for me, yeah, I'd be using the same spoon. Yeah. So good. All right, so we're gonna then now take out the cake again. And see, so it's not as jiggly, it's still kind of jiggly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in my tester, and it's still coming out. So again, I'm going to do 2 minutes because once it starts to really cook and set, then you really do just want to, you don't want to go more than 2 minutes because then you'll overcook it. So it's such a fine balance of that and that. Okay, so we have our frosting ready to go. So we're just gonna put this to this side. So I'm just gonna cover it with some plastic wrap. And I'm gonna do that and then just wait for our cake to be done. Okay, so my timer's about to go off, so I'm gonna check my cake. So we're gonna just stick it in to make sure it hits the bottom, and then you're gonna very slowly take it out. Now here, it comes out completely clean. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put it on my wire rack here, and I'm gonna let it sit for at least 30 minutes to an hour to cool, because you do not want to frost a cake that is warm. Go ahead and do it and you'll understand. It'll just tear the cake. So it's super important. I have a little sunshine here. Super important, oops, sorry, that you make sure that your cake is cool before you start to frost it. All right, so your cake should be cool by now. Mine took about a little over an hour. I did put them in the refrigerator to kind of cool a little bit faster so I can do this fun stuff. Is you're gonna have your cake in your pan, right? And it might just flop out, but it might not. So best rule of thumb is if you take a butter knife and do it on the dull side and go around the edges. That. Now the cool thing is about the parchment that I was telling you guys about is you literally just peel off the parchment and it is like perfect in there. And then as you can see, it's a little bit easier to clean up too because there's not as much cake on the bottom. So I really like this new parchment method that I kind of happened to find. So I have my cake on another piece of parchment. And I'm gonna show you, I have it, and this is not mandatory. Use serrated knife as well to do this part. So it's not mandatory that you gotta be fancy like me. I do quite a few cakes, so all the money that I've made through the cakes has basically been put back into tools so I can learn how to make more cakes. So saw back and forth, and it levels it out because it uses a leveling section. So then you're just gonna kind of take off the top. So I highly recommend this to do even if you use a serrated knife, because when you start to put the frosting on, it is super nice to have it level. So I've already done one, and then this is my second one. The other thing I love, I got as a gift from one of my dear friends, Michaela, what? Michaela gets me a lot of baking things, and I love it. I didn't even know I needed this until I got this. So this is a cake stand spinner. It's super great because it has, a locking mechanism. So when I'm doing the fine details of a cake, then it doesn't spin. But when I need to frost a cake, it spins. I'm gonna have my spatula, or my cake spatula frosting. And I kind of overfilled it. I don't recommend overfilling it. I don't know why I overfilled it, but I did. It didn't really matter. It's just gonna make it for a mess. So hopefully, because my frosting is not too terribly thick. The one thing that I saw on a cooking show, and I was like, does that really help? And they had put it in a container and done spirals throughout in the center. And I was like, that cannot be a real thing, can it? Oops, forgot to pop it. So I was just like, what the heck, that can't be real. But it is real. And I highly recommend it. So I normally it would look a little bit better than that, but I overfilled my thing. So that way, when I go to use my spatula here, it's a lot easier to spread my frosting around. So what I'm doing here is I am using a back and forth motion because it doesn't really matter how this looks because the cake's gonna go right on top of that. But you do want to make sure that it remains level throughout the thing, and that's where this little guy comes in super handy because it's really nice to do. What you're gonna do is normally you would want to just like plop it on, but one fun secret tool, flip it upside down. I can't believe that didn't fall apart in my hands. I was expecting that. So that way your actual level surface is the bottom of your cake. And you're just gonna kind of eyeball your cake to go on there and make sure it is level. And then you just want to press it down to make sure. who I'm making this cake for. Don't worry, I cleaned my hands. They're all nice and washed. So now I'm gonna make this more like a naked cake, but now it should be level throughout the cake. I'm going to put a layer on the outside, if you can see, inside here, to kind of fill in those gaps. I'm gonna make this more of a naked cake. And then I'm gonna put more on the top. Because it got really a little too greasy. All right, so now what I'm gonna start on the side of the cake. And I'm gonna just very, with force, but not over force. Kind of like if you're squeezing a tomato. It's my daughter Talia. Okay. And we're just going to squeeze it and move it across. And then I'm gonna just kind of squeeze the top of it. And again, you want to force it down and level it out. Distracting my children with the video game at the moment. So I can do this. All right, so I went ahead and just finished up like doing it. So it has that naked cake style that you can kind of see right in here. So you can still see the cake. A lot of people really like this style. I've noticed the last about year or 2 years, a lot of people have gone to like that naked cake look. So because I literally had to whip up something today to make a cake, I have these fun little chocolate molds that I have, and I know that my neighbor really likes football, so I went ahead and did some chocolate footballs. So if you ever do use these, the key to these is you spray these with a non-stick spray first, so like Pam, and then you put the chocolate in and you scrape it off and put it in the freezer for about 5 minutes. So what happens is once they're frozen, they pop right out. So I'm gonna do a fun little cake. I have a little thing here. That's gonna be the back of the cake, so I'm gonna do the front of the cake. And I'm gonna do 2 little footballs. And with that extra chocolate frosting that I had, I'm gonna go ahead and write Steve. So what I like to do is I really like to make sure that my frosting, because this was in the refrigerator, so I left it out over this last hour to soften up, because you really want to make sure you don't have a thick frosting when it comes to this. And here you really don't want to overfill your thing. You really want only enough frosting to fit in the palm of your hand, so that way it's a natural style of writing. And then you want to make sure that the tip you use isn't terribly small or terribly large. If it's really small and you have a thicker frosting, your hand is going to be just obliterated. But if you have too big of a hole, then it's going to be really big writing. So, so here is the tip that I'm using. It's a smaller. All right, so I'm going to be super simple. And what I do is I always have just kind of any surface and first squeeze out so I know what the consistency is going to be like, and this. All right, so I'm going to kind of do it at diagonal. All right, and then when you're doing stuff that has like I's and T's, you always want to write out the whole word first and then go back and dot your I's and cross your T's. Now we have a cake from Mr. Steve, and it says Happy Birthday, Steve. And that is how we make a chocolate cake with strawberry frosting.